until people realize that something can happen that fast, then they'll realize that lock it out.
1/10 of a second it was there, another 1/10 of a second it wasn't.
Never saw it again. And it happened so quick.
Just an instant thump, it cut off the end of my thumb. It's just judgment.
Because it can happen in just a blink of an eye. It could be gone.
My name's Glenn Cabral. I work at Morton. Been here 32 and a half years. I ran an automatic bagger. I had been here about 3 years at the time. I had been on the bagger about maybe 6 months as a new job. I was hanging bags. It was right after lunch. I went to lunch, came back right after lunch. I run bags. This turret goes around. It has grippers that close down at a certain point on the bag. So I'd hang the bag, and once in a while, the bag would crumple up upon itself. And if you didn't fix it, it would come out sewn up poorly. You know, it'd be all crumpled up and leak. So at this time, I'd hang a bag, and it'd have a flap on it, and it'd come around, and with my hand, I'd undo the flap real quick. And then it would be fine, but it'd be close to the guard and everything. I went too far with it. I put the bag in, had a bad flap, came around, I reached under the flap, and that's when the grippers came down on my finger, and I had to pull my finger out. As soon as it clamped down on it, I just pulled it out. I was bleeding a lot, so I covered up the blood, got out gloves and everything. This is back 32 years ago, or 30 years ago. So I was keeping the blood from coming out. And then they went and got the supervisor.
It was on a fly cutter, probably the same machine they use to cut your craft paper. That type of machine, it's always running. The machine has tapes on it in order to guide the material across and where it stacks. And they have a tendency to fall off. And you put them back on these rollers, it's got to be running.
Right.
So that you could gently ease it on. And I didn't realize that the blade came that close to one of the pulleys that the tape was going onto. And while guiding it across, I got my finger in the back of one of the rollers and cut it off. It took a minute to set in what had happened. It kind of pinched, and then a couple seconds later it started burning. And I thought, man, there's something wrong here. Had to find it. It was actually stuck on the bottom of one of the tapes, so I found it.
I was a mechanic on the line, and the previous mechanic was having jams. And so he told me he was having jams. So I went ahead and said, okay. We shut it down, and in the back of the machine, it was all open. There's a lot of belts down there. Some belts you could see, some belts you could not see. So I could see the belt right down below that was driving some of the pulleys. They weren't running. So I put my hand underneath the machine, basically where the hopper, where you feed the can bodies, because we were making steel can for can line. And when that happened, I found out the belt was running, and it pulled me right into it was a cog belt, pulled me right into the pulley. And I pulled back, and that's when it basically went around the pulley, but it just pinched it off. It's just like if a knife just come along, just cut it right off. Once it happened, I looked at it, I didn't see the finger. I didn't think I cut it off. I thought I just cut it, like with a knife. So I put a rag around it and went to the nurse's office. And Then they took me in there and they washed it down and they found out it was gone. They told another mechanic to go find my finger. It was in the machine, down on the floor. Well, for one thing, we had a lockout tagout down at the plant, but it wasn't really strict as it is here.
I was young. I was into cars. One day, me and my buddies, we was working on my car, and we was drinking a beer same time. One of my buddy, he was inside the car, and I was working on the engine. I think there was a miscommunication. He turned the engine on while I was working on the engine, and the fan of the car cut my finger off. Physically, it took me about 6 months to recover, but mentally, I'm still suffering because I was left-handed and I have to go to special classes to get used to my right hand. Sometimes, I'm still suffering from that. I haven't recovered it fully. My advice, in those days, the safety wasn't a big thing. We was young, we was dumb, but my advice to everybody, think twice before you do anything. It's not a question of working on the car. Any power tools you work with, be careful.
Till people realize that something can happen that fast, then they'll realize that lock it out.
1/10 of a second it was there, another 1/10 of a second it wasn't.
Never saw it again. And it happened so quick.
Just an instant thump, it cut off the end of my thumbs.
1 second misjudgment.
Because it can happen in just a blink of an eye. It could be gone.
Is it on or off?
It's on.
Okay.
You wouldn't lie to me, would you?
Huh?
You wouldn't lie to me, would you?
Because a couple times my big head got in the camera.
Alright, there we go.
Good?
A lot
Okay.
of that stuff left-handed, fortunately, I'm ambidextrous.
But man, there's something wrong here.
That's it here.
He said, yeah, I'm just tired of the boss myself. Keep on coming out here and saying things.
An injury like this, it's like putting your hand in a glove.
I think we got what we needed, buddy.
Okay.
Thanks a
Yeah,
lot, man. Okay.
that was really good, Dan. Right on, bud. That was powerful.